Howdy, howdy. Glad you're here for the 6.03 help video. All right, so you need to remember a bunch of stuff from Unit 1 to be successful on this. First of all, we're talking about scale factor. And scale factor creates a dilation that either makes something bigger or smaller. Your formula for scale factor is image over pre-image. If the absolute value of the scale factor is greater than 1, then it's an expansion. You're making it bigger. If the absolute value of the scale factor is between 0 and 1, then it's a contraction. You're making it smaller. Please do not forget this one. Negative scale factors do not determine if it's bigger or smaller. Don't do that. Some people see a -3 and they automatically say it's getting smaller. It's not getting smaller. 3, the absolute value of -3 is +3, and 3 is greater than 1, so it's actually an expansion. It's getting bigger. All the negative scale factors do is change the orientation. So when you're trying to figure out if it's bigger or smaller, don't get hung up on the negatives. Completely ignore them because that changes the orientation. It doesn't determine if it's getting bigger or smaller. And then, of course, our mapping rule. We might not need this for this quiz, but this is just a recall on everything from Unit 1. You just multiply your ordered pair by your scale factor. All right, and then the last thing, the image is the one that has the tick marks, or they're called primes sometimes. And that's important when you try to figure out what goes where. Okie dokie, so let's check out this first one. Which scale factor produces a contraction under a dilation of the original image? So we want it to get smaller. That means the absolute value of our scale factor has to be between 0 and 1. Remember, we do not care about negatives. Negatives are distractors. I'm going to get rid of them. So then I'm just going to say, okay, is the absolute value greater than 1 or between 0 and 1? This is the absolute value 2. That's going to make it bigger, so that's not a contraction. Absolute, or 1/2, that's going to make it smaller. That is a contraction, so yay. A 1/2 again, that's going to make it smaller. 2 is going to make it bigger. So completely ignore the negatives if you're trying to figure out if it's expanding or contracting. All right, which scale factor produces an expansion? So this time we want the absolute value to be greater than 1. Again, we don't care about the negatives. Cross them out. They're a distractor. So 2 is greater than 1. That's going to be getting bigger or expanding. 0.75 is less than 1. That's not getting bigger. Again, 0.75. Nope. 2 is yes. All right. For this one, under a dilation, the point -3, -4 is moved to -15, -20. What is the scale factor of the dilation? In other words, what are we multiplying by to turn -3 into -15? So you're asking yourself, -3 times what equals -15? And same thing for the 4. You're asking yourself, -4 times what equals -20? And you can either write out the equation and solve the equation, or you could probably do this in your head, and most of you will figure out that you're multiplying by 5. If you can't automatically figure it out in your head, then by all means, write out the equation and solve it. All right, so we have the pre-image A, B, C, D. So I'm going to go ahead and label this one pre-image. And then the image is A prime, D, B prime, C prime, D prime. It's centered at the origin, and we want to know the scale factor. What scale factor is used to create this dilation? So remember, your formula for scale factor is image over pre-image. So really, we can pick any length we want. I'm going to pick length DC, and I'm just going to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 5 units long. And then I'm going to pick the corresponding side down here, which would be, again, DC, and that's 1 unit long. So the scale factor here is 5. It's going to be a +5 because the orientation didn't change. A started in the top left and A prime's in the top left. B was in the top right, B prime's in the top right. So the orientation didn't change, so our scale factor is +5. All right, on this one, the smaller triangle is the pre-image. The That means the bigger triangle is the image. The center of dilation is at 1, -1, right there. What is the scale factor used? So we're going to use our scale factor formula, which is image over pre-image. But before I even start looking at my image values and my pre-image values, I want to point out here that the orientation has changed. I hope you noticed that. Like it was pointing down and now it's pointing up. The triangles, the orientation, they're not facing the same direction. So I automatically know that it's a negative scale factor. So before I even start dealing with my formula, I'm going to tell myself I know it's negative. I'm going to get rid of the positive answers. And then you can just pick. I'm going to count this side length as 1, 2. That's the pre-image. And then the corresponding one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 over 2 reduces to 4. And I know it has to be negative because the orientation has changed. So my scale factor is -4. All right, good luck on your quiz.